Hello, sports fans, and welcome back to the NRL Supercoach BDE Podcast. We are the best draft experts, bringing you all the excitement around these draft positions as we get closer and closer to Vegas, baby. Sunday in the morning, I think it is, Todd Man. Here it
Yes,
comes.
mate. Here we are. We're just around the corner from Vegas, mate. I'm fired up. Last of the trials are happening. It's all a go, mate. We're close. We're close.
Nearly there, mate. Does the hype go as far to you, Simo? You up and about, mate?
I am up and about. I think it's hard not to be. If you're an NRL Supercoach draft enthusiast like we all are, and as you probably are listening to this show, this is the time you live for. Draft season, start of the year. The only thing I was thinking of saying, which I didn't really want to bring up, but I'll bring it up now anyway, because it is a bit of a wet blanket thing to say. But I don't know about you guys, but I just feel a little bit less keen for Vegas this time around. This round two seems a little bit dull.
Roosters aren't there, apparently.
Hey, we're trying to get these sponsors flowing in, mate. Blandy's will have. He's not about this, you know. Great spectacle. Nice. Don't listen. Look, maybe not, mate. I just hope it's brought in the US crowd, and obviously a bit more of the celebrity appearances actually come good this time, because I know a lot of it fell flat last year.
Yeah, as it often does. But
didn't quite deliver. So
yeah, but it's once the games start, of course, I'll be keen for it, because when you see it on the TV, like, it is something different you don't get all the time. But I don't know. Second round, it's just not quite the same. But that's just me being a bit of a wet blanket.
Yeah, you're wet blanketing hard, mate. That's it. You're a Debbie Downer and stuff. Boo, indeed. Like, and not to be booed is the Mighty Knights, boys. Like, wow, just give us the title already. Give us the title already. We're home. Couldn't have gone better, honestly. Lads, we are up to the final two positions here in our preseason podcast series. Some very good and promising viewership for us early, so thank you heaps, listeners, for your support. Tonight we'll also drop a late charge towards a listener league. We're going to be drafting. The plan is on Wednesday evening. So stay tuned for a post from Simo on X and Toddy on the Book of Face that will actually reach out and ask listeners who is keen to participate and who can actually draft on Wednesday evening. So it'll be a 10-man standard league, no flex. We're just going vanilla with this one after the 2 fullback debacle of last year.
What are
you boys talking about? There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
22 fullbacks. Let's play a two fullback league.
Hey, draft better, you muppets.
Yeah, and those fullbacks are definitely not going down early, are they, Todd?
No. Never seen an injury to a fullback ever.
That's right, mate. So, yeah, they'll be excited to run the listener league. We'll be looking, hopefully, for 7 new charges. We had an awesome first year of that. If failing that, we've got a couple of our stalwarts. I'll be very excited to jump in. So, keen as for that, boys. It'll be, I loved having a crack last year. Lads, tonight we are going to cover the FRF and 2RF positions. One of those is exciting and pivotal. One isn't quite that. So,
big boppers, come on down.
For our listeners, to encourage that longer viewership, listeners, so we're after those likes and subscribes and watching the video from the start to finish, if you could. Really helps us grow the brand. We've jumped on a new streaming service tonight to try and up the quality for you, so pumped and hope that works. But tonight, boys, we're actually just going to rip into FRF first, because leave the juicy bit to the end, the 2RF. And we'll do a little bit of a recap of how drafts may be shaping up in your neck of the woods. All right. The front row, boys. There's some excitement here at the top. And I'm just going to list in no particular order, because I think we're a bit different here. But you've got your AFB and his move to the Sharks. Tino, he looked very good in limited minutes on the weekend, for those worried about his fitness. You've got the big man, the big bopper from the Broncos, Payne Haas, with a better team around him. Joseph Tarpany's always going to be up there or thereabouts. Terrell May and Mitch Barnett. And then there's a mighty gap from that far down. Any disagreements there, boys?
None whatsoever, mate. I'm pleased you put some respect on Terrell May there, baby.
He is going to be exciting to own, listeners.
He is primed, listeners. Can't wait.
Todza did draft him in our League of Record. I'm sure you figured that out in the first couple of seconds there. huge promise with the man he's offloading in big minutes at the Tigers, and obviously ousting poor David Clemmer to the to the reserves. Tough
I
time.
put away some fist bumps when I signed Terrell May to my roster, mate. I was very, very happy.
You were, mate. I also getting Tino at a very nice discounted price did not hurt my brain either, sir. But just checking in, the strategy that we have been selling on this potty for a little while now is, yeah, those boys are pretty good to own, but unless you can wait long and deep into a draft, don't reach out and grab them, Simo.
Yeah, that's right. I think the thing with the front row is always going to be that they aren't typically a position where you're going to hit a lot of upside. I mean, AFB's probably been the main exception to that rule the last couple of years, because he's probably shown a propensity to sort of set up tries and especially score a lot of tries with back-to-back 8-try scoring seasons in a row now. So he's probably the one that's a little bit different, but typically speaking, when we talk about front row, they're not a high upside position. It's okay to have guys that can pump out consistent 65, 75. And they're worth something, don't get me wrong, but to take them in sort of the first 2 rounds of a draft would be a mistake, in my opinion. They're good to have. So if anywhere from sort of late round 3 is probably okay, even mid if you really want to go that high. But typically, I think a tried and tested strategy with the front row is to just take other positions over them, because there's most likely going to be guys that you like more than them at that higher end of the draft that just offer that sort of not or 80 potential, 85 potential with the big games in there. So yeah, it's probably a position that typically doesn't get pushed up much, and it's one of those strategies because they're just a bit of a meat and potato style of position.
Todd, your chance to rebut here and tell him how wrong he is. And Terrell May, how early in the first round should he go, sir?
No, I can't be sitting and doing that to our listeners, mate. Simo's nailed it, mate. Just sit back and wait. Like, these guys are good at the position, but yeah, again, don't want to be reaching for them.
No, it is interesting to me though. I think personally, ponying up for a Fanua Blake, Tino, or Terrell May at least has some potential, because those guys can be more of a difference maker possibly and hit some upside. If you could pick them up maybe the end of round 3, boys, is that a thought that's not too bad for you, Todd?
Oh, end of round 3 probably would be okay to look for a Terrell May, but that's probably when I'm first starting to look at a premium front rower. Like, that's probably as early as it gets for me. Yeah,
I like it. I think that's bang on. Then for mine, there is a blanket over a whole heap of just good startable options, which you'd be quite happy to have as your number 1. So I'm just going to read out again. And no, this is an order I have, but I'm not absolutely locked into this, given front row is one that I just blanket, make sure people I think are in a range of scoring. I think these guys have a chance of averaging 55 or better. Max King, Stefano just on potential, Josh Curran, James Fisher-Harris, Lindsay Smith could be a good cut price option this year. Jack DeBellin may be on the decline, but he seems to roll up to a 55 just every year, pretty much. Jackson Ford, if he gets an edge start, boys, is a really good discounted one. I think that many would enjoy. Junior Barlow, who knows? Paseka. Do you see we're starting to lose interest here, boys? Like, already, the blanket is pretty wide. I don't mind having a crack at the one that might be on the up in the trajectory here. So, like, Lindsay Smith, I mentioned, is one that I think absolutely fits that bill. Daniel Saifidi moved to the Dolphins with Jesse Bromwich retired. Could be another one that might do just enough, even if the trial didn't look that flash today with limited minutes. Corey Horsburgh, that's what I've got. We've got down to the list of someone interesting. The big horse, Simo. Can you get around that?
I think you have to get around him just based on past. Well, he's proven that he's got Supercoach pedigree as recently as a couple of years ago. I know last year was a bit rough for him, but you mentioned the guys around him. None of those guys have the potential that Horsburgh has, because he's what he averaged 61, 62 a couple of years back. So I like him at the value because, around that sort of range of guys, there's no one that can sort of do what he could potentially do. It says a lot about the position as a whole, really. You're looking for someone that's got sort of any chance of getting 55 minutes. And Horsburgh's got a chance of that if things break right for him.
Yep. The other one for me that I think I might be a bit alone here, I've got him in our league of record as a very, very, I guess, a flyer pick. I just think Liam Henry is a very good real-life young player. And with Moses Leota not playing massive minutes, alongside Lindsay Smith now, who's been thrust into more of a starting role, I like the idea of Liam Henry maybe pushing his way up closer to that 45-minute sort of mark, and he's shown a little bit of offloading, a bit of potential, like high work rate, and I think that he's someone that I like taking a flyer of to start the year. You can easily punt him if it doesn't work out.
Yeah, 100%. That's good strategy, man. A good shout on Liam Henry. Yeah, he's a really good player, and we saw glimpses of it last year, and with a bit higher of a minute role this year with JFH going. Definitely a good strat.
Absolutely. Look good today, boys. Another one I wanted to mention was Jacob Saifidi with his brother gone. Leo Thompson off to the Dogs next year. He has been a rep player in the past. Maybe someone was surprised to see him play in Origin, but there's a chance here he's one of those guys that jumps up into that 55 range if it all falls his way. Either of you interested there?
Look, I'll note myself down as a little bit interested. I did consider him in our league of record because he went undrafted, but he was someone I considered with sort of a last round pick, or in our case, a dollar pick because we're an auction league. But he got picked up in our league of free agents today based on his performance. I think that's fair enough. There's minutes to be had there just with the departures you mentioned. Obviously, Leo Thompson out of favour a little bit there and haven't already been confirmed to move on. So, is he a sexy name? No, but I think with the big thing with front row, like opportunity almost trumps all. Like if they can get, there are obviously cases where they play big minutes and do bugger all with it. But typically speaking, if you've got someone that's got the opportunity to earn minutes and decent minutes at that, then they're worth a punt. So I'm not going to shy away from Saifidi too much because I think the chance is there for him to get 50 minutes.
Absolutely. Tommy Flegler, boys, really sad case. He'd be someone easily towards that 55-plus range that we're looking at before. So just hope the big fella finds his way back to fitness because that's a real sad little case at the moment. The rest of them here, I think Tommy Hazelton barging over some tries pre-season is going to make him look very, very juicy. But I think that he's going to have to score tries like he did last year to actually be relevant, surely. Minutes aren't there. Can't be.
Yeah, no, surely they can't be with Fanua Blake taking up heaps.
He'll be painful to own because you'll start him the next week and he'll do nothing. And then he'll score the week he's on your bench.
Absolutely. Naf White, is he a shout, Simo? I want to believe. I think he's decent, but I don't think minutes are going to be consistent enough.
No, I think it's probably more of a classic thing with him because he's a good price. He's got dual. He ticks a couple of boxes in that regard, but I don't know. I think the Roosters are just going to sort of make it up as they go, a bit of patchwork sort of forward rotation there.
Yeah.
It's not to say that he can't prove his worth and earn more minutes as the year goes on because like that team is screaming out for someone to put their hand up and actually take those minutes.
Yep.
But as we see here right now, it appears as though it's just going to be a lot of Siwa Wong, Naf White. Obviously, Spencer Leniu will be in the mix there. Lindsay Collins will play decent minutes. I just feel like it's going to be a lot of guys. And Egan Butcher will come back and play a bit of a role too. It's just I hope White puts his hand up. But it's not something I'm banking on.
No, he's an okay flyer, I think, but I think don't overdraft just thinking it's automatically going to turn his way this year. Looking further down the list, the only one here I can see who also... Actually, there's a couple that may not be meat and potatoes, Todza. Mo Fott has teased us for years. In and out.
Can we go back to the well?
We just out?
No, I'm out. I think there's too many mouths to feed there now too. You add RCG in there. That's another mouth to feed. Mo Fott does this to us every year, has some glimpses. It's just a headache that I'm not willing to take, to be honest.
Yeah, and speaking on RCG, when we're not sure if he'll play round 2, I believe. It's a little bit debatable at this point. Do you think it's just the same for him? It's just too many minutes chopped up?
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, I think it is. I think they're going to be... It's going to be good real life for the Titans with their go forward, I believe. But in terms of fantasy, it's kind of sad that there's not going to emerge, other than obviously Tino, a front rower of value.
Yeah.
The remaining list, the other two big boppers I want to mention, and these are the type of other flyers I like to take. Big Ben Takura is a monster and looked pretty damn good again in the preseason. And obviously massive Xavier Willison, who I think, if he had the minutes, would be an absolute walk-up start. Is it worth taking the flyer early season, or with Corey Jensen actually, yes, I know we've said maybe not the most dynamic player, has actually proven pretty damn good at NRL level as a solid option. Too many mouths to feed, Simo?
Well, yeah, if you're going to have Haas and Carrigan there, assuming that they're fit all year, it's going to be hard to see the minutes really being there for any of them, especially with Jensen fit. I think the real sneaky show at the Bronx would be like just the lack of depth they have in the second row. You've got obviously Brendan Piakura, Gashevsky got injured or HIA in the trial yesterday. Jordan Ricky sort of, he's nailed down a spot there, but he's you wouldn't say he's got a lock on that role with a new coach coming in either. Although he will obviously get the first crack. I think if there's any world where somehow one of these guys can display that they can play edge minutes, they would be a really, really good shout. And I think that's probably the most likely we're going to see one of them sort of announce themselves as a Supercoach player, at least while Haas and Carrigan are there. Looking at Willison and Takura, like they've both got the rangy size to them.
Oh yeah.
Willison especially, like if he can somehow prove that he can play an edge, that would just be unbelievable. Do I think it happens? No, but when you're looking at this late in the draft, like I'm thinking of a dream scenario, and that'd have to be it.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, and Takura is kind of a slightly even rangier, Simo. Like I thought maybe that's where my brain went to potentially play on an edge. But I mean, geez, I think Wilson's actually a really good footballer. So I'm very curious how that goes. And
I think the big thing, like you'll hear me come back to this all the time with front row. You're just looking for teams that have opportunities for minutes. We said it with Saifidi. Corey Horsburgh is the same. Like Josh Papali'i's not far from retirement, so there's front row minutes to be had there. We've got to squash the Titans because they don't sort of have at least an avenue for big minutes. The Broncos ones, like initially, like you just shut it off, like Carrigan and Haas. That's not going to happen. But because the second row is so iffy there, like there's avenues to where minutes could possibly be earned in like a dream scenario. And at the front row spot, like so often these guys emerge and you don't even realize that they're going to blow up the way they have because minutes just come along, they get given a spot and then they run with it. So it's one of those sort of really good waiver wire positions throughout the year because
it is.
Positions do come up, but it's not always predictable.
It is, mate, and that's a couple of things. I would strongly advise you either do what Simo did and you just draft potentially one FRF that you think will be a starter, and then wait to see how the team lists play out before actually picking one up. So it gives you a chance to take a flyer on another position. And the other option is if you're going to not draft just one, grab yourself just two. Don't stack your bench with front rowers. It is not worth it. It's not required. I've seen people do it just because they see a name. You just don't need to, right? You've got their waiver fodder. Pay close attention start of the year to those rotations, and we will absolutely talk about that on this poddy, listeners, and just about whether we think there's a trend, because that magical minute mark, Todd's up 50 minutes, mate. That's what we want, right?
Yeah, that's what you want, mate.
Is bonanza. Yeah.
That's where it's at.
All right. That's about as much as I want to spend on front row, boys. Looking at the back end of this list, is there just anyone else that I've not mentioned you think meets the criteria of someone who could be a 55 average?
Smoky one for me, mate. I thought I'd just touch base. I got two names that, if they're given the minutes, could be smoky. So David Moali, we've seen him before. You've seen him, last year. He always has this big talent. If you can get some minutes into him, he'll be pretty trim. So David Moali, and also Sam McIntyre from the new North Queensland Cowboys look kind of good today. If he was to get some minutes early doors, we got Hess back, but if he gets a minute early doors, don't mind Sam McIntyre.
Don't hate the shout, mate. He's a good, busy type. So let's see. Good effort.
Yeah.
Timo, any from you, fella?
Oh, I think Toddy's really onto something. Like Cowboys front row rotation is definitely one that you'd circle when you think about teams that have question marks and opportunities come up. Like if it's not McIntyre, it could be Griffin Neame. It's you want to take punts on those sorts of guys because there's the opportunity, because it's knocking on the door. Someone that I've sort of taken a punt on in our league, just especially with the Cam Murray injuries, Jai Arrow. He loves an injury, Jai Arrow. We all know this, but if you can get him like as your second front row really late in the draft, I think if he ends up playing 13, which is possible, he's definitely in the mix to potentially earn the spot. Yeah, he's a pretty solid 50, maybe 52, 53 average when he does sort of get the minutes. So he's a decent one, especially with the news that Murray's probably out for a decent chunk of the year.
Good shout, mate. And it's a good segue into the 2RF, boys. So, listeners, thank you for staying with us through the FRF. We're on now. We wake up. We got this. All right. Let's go. The 2RF, boys, it is juicy as ever, if not more juicy. It appears that while FRF has just dwindled, second row minutes, part of the reason FRF is so terrible is benches in the NRL focus on front row rotation now. The edges play 80 in most teams, if not, 65, 70 minutes onwards. So there's so much value, and it is pretty hard to win a fantasy championship if you don't have three good ones. But listeners, my cautionary advice I'll give here is I still don't think you should pony up too early, because I think there is so much value to be had in the 2RF. And as the season goes on, similar to FRF, you have players that fall their way into 80-minute roles that are all of a sudden become very, very relevant. So I wouldn't personally pony up for 3 guns. I don't mind the anchor model, that one guy you can bank on that you pony up for at least in the first. What do you reckon, Todzer, Simo? Four rounds-ish?
4, yeah. And 3 to 4. Yep.
But personally, we're going to start with some of these big names, and I think they're too expensive for my liking. So David Fafita, little injury cloud. He's been shifted to the right-hand side of attack. Serious question marks when he's played on the right as to whether he's not lived up to that massive average that he has in the past. Not really sure why that's happened, because I still think he plays his best footy on the left, and he's arguably their best player. But concerns. What do you think?
So will that be Brimson's side, the right-hand side?
I mean, Brimo's got every side covered. It's just interesting, isn't it? It could be just a symptom of how bad the halves have been at the Titans and that they couldn't, unlock him. It does boost Beau Fermor, obviously, because when he's played on the left, that's where he's done his best work.
Oh, yeah.
But David Fafita, do you both have him at number 1 just out of respect?
No, I have him at 2 behind Isaiah Yeo, mate.
Isaiah Yeo, plead the case, sir.
I just think he's going to be heavy on the ball this year without Luai, and they're going to take a while. Cleary can't do it all. I just think Isaiah Yeo is going to be that guy.
So last year was a career year for him in Supercoach. I had the pleasure of picking him up a little cheaper. He was outstanding, Todd. I'm not going to lie. As your anchor, there's no way I'm going to argue. Yep. My only problem with you having him 1, pardon me, is do you think the upside just goes up that little bit more to nudge him up towards more like a, let's be honest, to beat David Fafita over the last few years, he needs closer to an 80 average than a low 70.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he's got that in him. I think he's got a couple of points per game in him. Averaged 74 last year. I think he's got it in him to just
hit 80.
Really take it over. Yeah. He won't be that guy that scores you, 600s a year, but he's going to be that solid guy that I would just be happy to have him at number 1.
I'm not going to argue too hard, mate. I'm a huge Isaiah Yeo fan, and he proved last year in Supercoach that his base was absolutely ridiculous, like stupid.
Where do you see on that, Simo?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got Fafita 1 still.
I do too.
Yeah, the guy just has arguably one of the most Supercoach friendly games that we've seen. Just the ability to tackle bust at will, offload at will, obviously score tries at a pretty insane rate for a back rower. So I'm not going to overthink this one too much with Fafita. I think the Titans will be a better attacking team this year than they were in 2023 at least. So, look, moving to the right is slightly concerning, but I think if there is any solace that, like, Brimson appears to be playing left side with Fermor in predominantly Campbell on the right with Fafita. So for me, that's sort of a good thing for David Fafita because Campbell's going to make things happen. I think that'll be a good combo. To say that though, like Campbell did move a lot around both sides, so I don't think Campbell will stay just on the right, but Brinshaw I think will stay pretty much on the left there, support up the middle. So, like I see the arguments for Isaiah, but for me personally, when I'm drafting the number 1 2RF, I like someone that I think can hit hundreds quite often. Yeah, it's not a slight on Isaiah because I get his base is great as well, but give me the more attacking threat in Fafita.
I'm with you. I've got Yo down in 5, only for that reason, Simo, because I've got Fifi, Katoa, Crichton, and Tino, just for the same reason. Tino probably being the most questionable of that lot is, does he score enough tries playing lock to be above Isaiah Yo? Possibly not. I might even flip those if I was being honest. But Ellie Katoa and Angus Crichton. Ellie Katoa, I find it very hard to believe, won't just do pretty much exactly what happened last year and just keep scoring an absolute truckload of tries. I would hate to be against him in Supercoach when he's playing one of the lesser teams in Melbourne, boys. That's just carnage.
Scary, man.
I would potentially have him as the number 1 if I was going to go not Fifi for that reason. I actually think that's pretty damn close for mine. Angus Crichton is the one, boys, that I'm flat off. I'm just very nervous about the Roosters. I know that's the low-hanging fruit, but I also just strangely I'm not even going to go there. Just a slight regression Supercoach candidate for me with the loss of Luke Keary and no Sam Walker anyway. It worries me a little bit. Do either of you feel the same?
Oh, I do. Yeah, I definitely do.
Yeah.
I'm not bold enough to rank him outside the top 6, I think.
No, you couldn't.
Yeah.
So it's pretty hard to be that to really make a huge stand on it, but he's definitely one of those guys that I was easy. I think he was my first nomination in our option league because he was clearly one of those guys I had no interest in drafting this year for the exact reasons you outlined. I just think, I can just repeat what you said. I think he'll drop. He was due a drop off. Probably will lose a little bit of attack as well. Yeah. Just it's only nitpicking. Like I'm not going to smash him a lot, but I would be looking over him for the Katoas of the world, even the Olakuatus of the world, obviously Isaiah Yo's of the world. So, I think he was an easy fade.
Yeah, I agree with that, mate. And then that brings us... Oh, actually, before we go on, I should just quickly throw to me, what have you got in terms of the draft position for those guys? So if you're Fifi, Ellie, Tino, Yo, and Crichton, we've said a pretty... if you want to throw Olakuatu in there, potentially in that top 6, you said, Simo. He's probably the next one. You have got Hopgood and Kolomatangi and Nikora there as well. They start to blend together a lot for me here. Yeah,
they do. And because they blend together so much, I think you'll find a lot of them, especially the back end of that, the Nikora, Hopgood, even Olakuatu in some leagues. I think they will start to sort of push towards the back end of 3, start of 4. I was doing a Magic Sponge draft with Physio the other day, and I think Olakuatu went in round 4. So I thought it was good value. I thought it was really good value, but
he can win your weeks.
Yeah, it was a league that definitely valued halves a lot more and pushed them up. So I think it was value. Yes, I think it was egregious. Not really. I think it was a pretty fair spot for him to go. As for the top end guys, like if Fafita is your number 1, or Toddy's case, Isaiah Yo, like I feel like if you are picking early in the draft, so in the top 4 or 5, whether it's Cleary, Turbo, Ponga, Hines, whoever, if you can end up getting your number 1 ranked 2RF at the back end, like at a 2-3 turn, I think that's pretty
juicy.
Insane value if you're getting.
I do too.
If you're getting essentially your number 1 player at a position in round 1 and then getting your number 1 2RF, it's not a bad way to go.
I love the upside start there, Simo. That's brilliant. But as I was saying, this is where the juiciness comes in for me. I love the Olakuatu, Hopgood, Kolomatangi, obviously round 26 bye and struggling Bunnies to start the year aside, Britton Nickera, stud. Hudson Young was great last year. And for me, they're in a bit of a tier of their own. All those guys have potential to be, like, they could easily replace Angus Crichton in that top if any of them were going to. Like, if Hopgod got back to his form with that offload, that ridiculous offloading he had a couple of years ago, he's a 75 average waiting to happen. Hudson Young, maybe more debatable. Maybe that was a career year, but still a very talented player. Britton Nickera. I mean, Todd, I know you're one of the biggest fans out there. What's
Big
not
fan.
like?
I love his work, mate. He runs a great line. All about Britton Nickera. He's been great for Supercoach over the last 3 years. He's been really good.
He's one, I'll be honest, as I've even looked at this, I probably am confidently going to draft. Kolomatangi drops down for me. Nickera jumps right up there alongside Olukwatu for me. Coin flip. I'm happy with either of them.
Yeah.
Yep. I'd love them as my one. If you could get them in round 4 as your one, Simo, as you said, I think you're absolutely flying to start your draft.
They got good strike. I will just also quickly correct on like something I said, because a lot of listeners are probably going, "Well, Simon, like you idiot, like if David Fafita."
I was thinking the same thing.
Like if he gets, I'm sure you were. Like if he gets to the back end of round 2, like that's just not happening because a lot of people there are going to be late ones, started round 2 sort of picks. Like, are they really going to fall 10 picks? But like I think if we look at our auction draft from the other day, like. I think Fafita was $40-something in a $300 budget. So he probably would have been outside of the top 15 players drafted in price, I'd imagine. I haven't gone through and had a look. But
that's close to the 2-3 turns Simo using last year's data. It's about the same.
Like I think there would be some leagues where, maybe your number one falls. Maybe you can get Isaiah Yeo. At the end of round 2 if you're lucky, or some people out there will have Angus Crichton 1. That's their prerogative. So if you can get him at the start of round 2, then end of round 2, then knock yourself out. I still think it's a good start if you can get your number one 2RF that late.
I agree, and this is the next rung of, just to show you how deep this position is, listeners. The next run of players you could still comfortably call your number one, in my opinion, and be pretty happy with it. Now, Paddy Carrigan's your rock solid, kind of a lesser Isaiah Yeo. Him moving to the front row, though, boys, I wanted to bring up on this potty. So, should have mentioned as well, he will be dual. We almost think will happen for certain. He goes right up into that very good tier of front rowers, right? And you should, if you draft Paddy Carrigan, play him as a front rower once he pivots, 100,000%. Yeah. Okay, so he's just pretty straightforward. He could be a decent draft value because of what he's going to offer as a front rower. I think he'll be quite good there for Supercoach, right?
I don't think it changes anything for him.
No.
It's literally just a different number on his back. That's the only thing that changes. Like role, minutes, style, like nothing's changing.
Agreed. The next lot of folks. So Dylan Lucas.
Ooh,
obviously, if you want to play him as a CTW, that's probably a pretty cool thing to do. But if for some reason the draft goes that way, he is still a pretty damn good 2RF in his own right.
Yep.
Gonna have a big season, that man. He looks good. Jacob Preston, way to announce that you are the gun that we thought you were in preseason, and just absolutely tore him to shreds the other day. How often did he just run up the guts? It was incredible.
It's unreal.
I'm just huge fan. I just hope, touch wood, he can have a good run with injury, because he's had those like freak accidents type tag at the moment. So hope so. Mitch Barnett, I'm just going to say he should be an FRF, guys. Don't play him in your 2RF. You're wasting an opportunity there. Bo Fermor, very excited with him on the left, boys. Someone I was able to get hold of as a bit of a target. I think he's going to be awesome in that team this year. Then there's some other guys like Maxi Plath. Like, we were pretty big on him in the Hooker podcast, boys. He's a very talented player. Playing on an edge, gentlemen.
Yeah, I didn't love it.
No. He's not an edge player. I think it takes genius to work that out. Just a little concern with Maxi Plath here, Todza.
Yeah, I don't love it. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what the Dolphins do on the edges. They've got quite a few there that are sniffing around, but Maxi Plath, like what we loved about him last year was getting those base stats in the middle and just tackling his way to a big old 64 average, something like that. So That's where we want Plathy. We definitely don't want to be overdrafting him now that he's looking to either be on an edge or even if that doesn't work out, get sort of a bit of a bench role.
Might fade a bit, Simo, in both sets of rankings for mine, mate. If if I was to redo them today, you're agreeing with this concern.
Yeah, he's a hard guy to rank, Max Plath, because we're basing it solely on the fact that he gets named on an edge, and if that's the case, then I think we can all agree we're off him. But if he was named at 13, we'd do a complete 180, and we'd be all about him. So, there's value in that because there are question marks over his role. But as we sit here today, it looks like he'll start on the edge, and if that happens, he just seems like a bit of a meat and potatoes edge sort of player. I don't think he's going to get through the work that he probably should do, and it's just going to be like a 50, maybe even a low 50 average, which is pretty sort of boring. So, get him in at lock, and it's completely different. But yeah, it's a tough one.
I'm saying I have grave concerns for the Dolphins and what they're going to put out this year, boys. There's something, it's not quite right. Not yet. They've got time to move it, and they've got some decent players, don't get me wrong. But I just without Bennett there to steer them in the right direction, I don't know. Don't like it. A couple other interesting names here. Say Isaiah Papali'i, Connor Watson, Jeremiah Nane. I'm going to bring up those three together. Connor Watson, people were sort of, maybe overreading the trial. Is he not going to play 80 minutes? I still think he's a big minute guy who you're really going to play at hooker, aren't you? If you draft him, don't play him as a 2RF. Yes?
Toddy?
Yeah, sure. I mean, he's playing in my 2RF, but you know what? I get it. Play him as a hooker. Like, he can be played as a hooker.
Yeah, you didn't want to bring that. You didn't want to talk about that, did you, mate? Just
he's just gone very quiet all of a sudden.
Don't make me answer.
Who are you running at hooker there, mate, to make that work?
Reed Money.
Okay, that's fair enough. Interest in Isaiah Papali'i, though, boys. Obviously, he is looking like he's going to grab that coveted left edge spot at the Penny Panthers, where Viliami Kikau did all his damage a couple of years ago and beyond. You can see the hype, you really can, but we are a few years removed from that wrecking ball at Parramatta, where he was just incredible. He's looked all right pre-season, the limited minutes or limited action that he's had. Boy, it could go very, very well, couldn't it? That's the temptation, Timo.
Yeah, I'm starting to regret not having more of a crack at iPad. I think because the more I sit and think about it, he went for a really good value in our auction. I think he went for like $17 or something out of 300. So it was pretty good value. I think elite team has shown elite Supercoach in the past. I don't think he'll get back to those heights, but I think he'll be a good value based on where he's been going in drafts. Like if you can get him, a couple of rounds after, like the Nikora Olakau'atu style player. So if you're getting him as your number 2 in like round 6, maybe even round 7 if you really want to push it. But yeah, round 6 is probably where you're going to have to sort of reach up and get him. I still think it's good because I think he'll be pretty solid 60 average.
Simo, I think honestly, given there could be a bit of upside as well. Like you think if he's going to play well, he will score a few tries or at least a few offloads or something like that. Yeah. For me, I've got him ranked, and I'll stick with it. There's some pretty good names above him. Take Cam Murray out, so he now is ranked on my list 18th with Cam Murray out. I think you could go that deep and maybe even get away with him as your 2RF number 1. That's how deep that position is to start the year.
It certainly is. It certainly isn't without risk, I will say, because
very true.
If we get it wrong, then that's how you can. Yeah, look, that's how you can stuff a draft as well. If you take that punt and it's not right, all of a sudden, like you said at the start of the pod, 2RF is one of those positions that if you don't have it right, you're losing points every single week. So,
yeah,
I personally would still err on the side of caution with him. I wouldn't be going in guns blazing as my one unless I really felt like I nailed the draft before that point. But I like your gung-ho strategy because if it pays off, then you've just hit the lottery. But probably a little bit too risky for my blood.
Okay, so other names, I mentioned Jeremiah Nane. Now, it depends. If Duffy is the bee's knees, certainly looked good pre-season. Can Nane actually can he get back to being a threat of a very high upside, low floor, phenomenal second option here, Todd? Jeremiah Nane.
Yeah, I think he's a perfect two. I mean, he's going to give you those big games where he gets through and scores. I mean, Pilots are all fantastic and stuff, but he's always going to give you those floor games where he's going to let you down a little bit. You're not really drafting him in the spot you're drafting him for, to get this crazy good value, but he's a guy that can touch the top sort of echelons, week to week.
Very much so. And you just take your lumps a bit with him, don't you?
Yeah, I think you do.
There is a couple of strategies around your 2RF, and we'll talk a bit more about these as we go on. But Nane's like the guy that if he somehow is your third 2RF with two other more solid guys, that could be a good combo. Some people like to run three high upside guys and just hope one of them hits each week. Is kind of fun. That's a fun way to do it as well.
It's a fun one.
He gives you options because he is so spiky and he does hit that upside pretty regularly. I guess the concern would be, are the Cowboys actually going to be good enough in attack this year? Jury is somewhat out, I think, they've lost a few weapons.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. You've got to be a believer in the Cowboys, definitely. You got to back your judgment. If you're in on them, then you'll be in on the Nane. If you think that it's not going to work, then because there is let's be honest, there is a floor on the Nane as well.
Oh yeah.
As much as there is a ceiling, there is a floor.
It's low.
I love him as a player. Don't get me wrong. A couple of years ago, he's one of my favorite players to watch. I just think the guy's a freak. I love him as a two with a solid guy, as you said before. Yeah, he's one of those guys you just got to have conviction on, I suppose. It's probably the crux with him.
Jaden Sewer, Toddsy, you've been the biggest Dragons and Jaden Sewer fan. And finally last year, boy, did you put eggs on our faces, mate. He actually was outstanding for Supercoach.
Yes, boy.
It probably won't change.
You reckon? I see. I'm fading him a little bit this year, mate, just because not having Ben Hunt there.
Elevators.
It's just it's not for me this year, man. I think he's a big one that I could fade pretty easily this year.
Wow. Yeah, you're probably right. No Ben Hunt. I think just the nervousness. You're not enthused, I guess, by the Dragons with just Gutho essentially playing the everyman position to start the year.
That works great for a while, but then that looks pretty average after 10 rounds, I think. So
it's one of those things he can do it against the lesser teams, but those better defensive units, it ain't going to work.
Very Parramatta-esque.
Let's be real. That South Sydney team in the trial.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, a lot of teams are going to put up a score against them. But, yeah, I'm a bit like Toddy. I think Sewer's fine if you don't draft in off last year's average. If you drop a few points, maybe take five points off, and if you get him at that value, it's probably fine.
All right, I'll go back to the Cowboys. So Johnny Bateman, good luck knowing what you're about to see. Ruben Cotter, meat potatoes. Cam McInnes, meat potatoes, but play him as a hooker, obviously, as well. Johnny, Cotter is Cotter. John Bateman, boys, we have had a very good Supercoach player in there. It's been a while. There's been a few quitting on teams in there. Is it gone?
It's gone. I think it's gone with Johnny. I couldn't put my trust in him. This year. Especially because I think the Cowboys aren't going to be that great. And I know he does his little, skip on the inside and try and palm off about 7 dudes for some points. But I would prefer just to stick away from Johnny Bateman.
Timo?
I think the big thing with Johnny Bateman is he can look like a busted in real life, but still score okay for Supercoach. And he's just I can picture what Toddy's talking about, this palming people. Yeah, I'm okay with him as a low end 2, maybe even high end 3. But is he a target in a draft? No, but I think he'll be a pretty solid 55 average with some upside games. Yeah.
I think he's not the worst. I think he's a very good 3, Simo, that you probably don't have to pay up too much for. But maybe your more savvy veterans of the Supercoach scene might pay a bit more, but newer players will just be like, no, he's all over the media for negative reasons. And I think the real bet here is how long before he gets sick of Townsville. Canberra, no. West Tigers, see you later.
It's the heat too, like. You look at a fish out of water. Johnny Bateman up in North Queensland.
Mate, I struggled up there in Townsville myself. From with the UK look, it's not an easy one.
Mate, you struggle at South Bank. Let's be honest.
I do. I struggle everywhere, mate. I struggle. Teague Wilton. We love Teague on this podcast. We think Teague is a very good real life player, rock solid. With Sharks, likely to be right up there and attacking on both sides of the pitch with a bit of, I think pretty high scoring games, I'd like to think, from Sharks. Teague, can he get a 60 plus average?
Yeah, I think Teague can do that. Pretty solid.
He's not a bad one to have, is he, as your second FRF? Don't just plug and play rest of the season. He'll carry almost no trade value because no one will be that excited, but you'll be happy to have a solid guy who has good games. Yeah, he's a good one. I'm really not sure what to make of the Eels back row other than Kelma Tuolangi, who we once ripped on, then suddenly remembered that he can play some very good football. Tozza, I know you were big on him in our League of Record. You went after him.
Well, yes. I got him. I wouldn't say I'm big on him. I wasn't saying knocking the door down for him, but...
As his number one fan, he yelled out, listeners. He said, Kelma, my boy, come home.
No, I mean, I had 2 other great 2RFs, mate, in terms of Connor Watson and Lisa Katoa. So, look, take a wee shot on Kelma Tuolangi. He seems to have got that spot down there, and he looked good when he had the opportunities last year. So, a little bit more of that, and, you nailed it.
Yeah, I think he looked like he came on last year from an upside perspective, and I think it is his spot. Samula Fainu obviously looked very good in parts last year in a better Tigers team. He's absolutely a great third 2RF, just to hope that he matures and keeps rising in Supercoach. He is as talented as any of them, really. Does he get the support and the ball this time, Simo, is the only question.
Yeah, look, he had a quiet trial the other day, which is, it's going to happen, I suppose. In trial games, you don't really want to read too much into it. But, yeah, I'd probably go on record to say that he's probably one of, if not the biggest target of mine in the 2RF this year. I'm sort of sipping the Kool-Aid a bit on him and Galvin having that combo. I think he's really well priced at a 53 average from last year. I think people are going to sort of underdraft him a little bit because I think he'll improve on that quite a lot. Second year in, having a full off season as a bona fide second rower in that West Tigers team. So
good one.
big on Fainu. Love him. If you can get him as a 3, awesome. Which I have in our league, I think he's a good shout.
Yeah,
absolutely. A little bit more meat and potatoes. Josh Curran, he'll do a job for you, but I think again FRF is really where you should be playing him. Tommy Gilbert, Todza, I don't want to throw you. No, I don't, mate, because of last year, listeners. Todza had literally just drafted him and went down in the trial with that ACL and was huge on him going into last year.
You heard the preseason last year. I was all about him.
Mate, he's got the lock position back.
Yes, boy.
Absolutely lamenting it for Max Blath. Tommy Gilbert deserves to fly up these rankings, in my opinion.
I think so.
The work rate's going to be big.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to get in that lock position, a little bit less lateral movement than being on the edge. So, it's great for him. He's going to put away those base stats, make plenty of tackles, be plenty active in there, and hopefully we get that player that I was hoping for last year where he walks up to a 60-plus average and does really well for you.
He isn't quite as dynamic as like your Hop God type locks, but I tell you what, mate, if he only just adds a tiny sprinkle of offloading in there or something of that nature, I think your 60 is It's a very, very good chance.
Yeah,
And
having
possibly
Jeremy
even
Marshall
slightly
king
higher.
around that ruck would be nice as well.
Yeah, he's good. And just obviously in real life, he's a really good player. Gives the Maroons something else, if he gets back to form.
Yeah.
Now to some interesting ones, boys. Obviously, Tallis Duncan now has flown up the draft boards as a result of the Cam Murray injury. Where do you think he plays, boys? Does he get his shot at lock, or is he going to play on edge, which is what I think it probably looked like before the Murray injury?
I would say if I had to peg it, I reckon he'd get an edge spot.
Interesting.
When Ewan Aiken is fit, though, it might change some things, possibly. But, yeah, I'm pretty sure you can just lock in either Duncan or Jai Arrow. One of them will be 11 and one of them will be 13. It's just really Bennett's decision at this point.
Yeah, because Colin Matangi, from all reports, has slimmed down with this explicit purpose of playing where he should do as a superstar on the edge who should be playing Origin. Because he's so good. Colin Matangi is just a weapon. All right, so Tallis Duncan, boys, obviously comes up in drafts. He's another one that it's pretty safe to say he's easily going to get your third 2RF value for most of this year now with the Cam Murray injury. So he's a really good one along there with Finu for me, Simo. They're in that same sort of breath for me.
Yeah.
Love both of them. Ascending stars, elevators.
On the up and up.
On the up and up. Zach Hosking, boys. So the news, one of the most injury-prone players we've seen in the 2RF, may well actually be right for round one as the news coming in. If he is, light me up, all about him. Obviously, in-game injury risk is massive, but when he plays, he's very good.
Yeah, he's exciting to watch when he plays, and he's had a few clubs now with going to the Panthers and now down to where he is in Canberra. But I just wanted to see him get the opportunity, and we've seen him in the past. He's had some very Supercoach friendly games when he has had the minutes, so you do want to see him in that 80-minute role.
Absolutely. And just, again, showing how deep it is. I'm starting to get into the late 30s and the 40s here with the rankings. Guys that I still think are pretty decent as your third 2RF. So, Vili Kickout, he actually did start the year pretty poorly last year, but once he got it cranking, he was pretty damn good on the run home. And he's someone similar to Nane, is kind of actually a lot better than you probably think for that little variance he provides. Obviously, floor can be a bit damaging. One that I'm a bit hype on and I actually got as a very cheap target in my draft was Finafiliaki, who I think is going to lock down an edge for the Dolphins and easily outstrip his draft position, boys. I think he's just a decent player, and I think he's just been waiting to get minutes. Either of you keen on him as a flyer?
Yeah.
I think he's ahead of Lemuelu for mine. I think he's well and truly pushed forward for that. And I think
it's going to be weird to watch the rotation whether they all get... If the edges do get 80, that's the only issue with Finafiliaki and the likes is, are they going to get 80? Does he need 80 to be relevant? Is they going to play 60? Is he going to be up there for you?
Absolutely. That's a good point, Todza. The risk there is that it is that 60 or less. If it's more closer to that 65 to 80 mark, I'm pretty big on him as an impact player who's going to do some things. But I'm with you. If it's more of that chop changey edge, which you don't see much in the NRL, that makes all of them risky.
Yeah, that screams at the Dolphins, isn't it?
It's all over the shop. It's Simo.
I was going to say, the funny thing is, you don't see it very much, but the last time we saw it was literally with Finafiliaki ruining Ricky's minutes last year.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely, mate.
It's pretty crazy if the roles are reversed where Finafiliaki's only getting 60, and someone else is getting the spell.
Look, he's someone as a flyer, boys. I certainly don't think but these are just heaps of these guys who are in that third 2RF conversation. So Lemuelu, I'm not as big on, boys, to be honest. I think he didn't look good enough last year and he missed his chance personally. Yeah. Aaron Clark may well get the start. I should have mentioned him in the front row. He may get the start at lock, and if he does, is he relevant? He probably is with his work rate. I just don't know. With him
just
and Walker,
don't think. Yeah, I think they're going to kill each other, dude. I don't think it's going to be one year. Yeah, I don't think there's going to be one that you want to play. I mean, yes, he's got that front row eligible, Aaron Clark, but we've seen him in the 13 role before. Actually, just been terrible as well. He had some good games in the 13, but he's also had games where you've relied on him. Think he's going to get those minutes at 13, and he's let you down. So it's not one that I'd be really recommending.
Yep, fair. just going to run through a whole heap of more meat and potato-y type guys. I just want you to tell me if you think any have a chance to be closer to a 60 than just a 50 to 55 average, okay? So Tyson Frizzell, who may play 13 this year, Nat Butcher, Victor Radley.
I think
The
Butcher
Reds is
could
an
be.
interesting one.
Yeah, fight you first, Simo, with the Butcher comment.
Oh, if Butcher gets an edge, and Radley plays 13, like, look, I think that Butcher made like 40 something tackles today and 16 hit ups, coming off the bench in the trial. So, like, if he was to ever make his way to an 80-minute spot, I mean, the hard thing is going to be trusting it for a long period of time, because the Roosters, once they start losing games, you just never know what Robinson will do. So, like, I completely understand why Toddy would be off that Butcher, because last year he saw exactly the worst of Trent Robinson and that Butcher.
Butcher was terrible last year.
Yeah, and I called him out on the podcast a few times for some shocking defensive efforts as well.
Yeah.
But if things were to break right for him and he got 80 somehow on the edge, like, he can base with the best of them. He's just not a a bit of a no frills sort of player, which is sort of to his detriment.
Victor the Inflictor, Todzer, I heard you mention, mate. Bit of hope that he can sort of keep going at that high 50s average.
Yeah, I would actually say if Victor was to get the edge, we'd probably be a little bit more interested in him. We saw him last year towards the back end of the year getting plenty of edge minutes, and put out a pretty decent average. So he had a couple of good scores with 90s and a 70 and that sort of stuff. So if he wants to get the edge and they want to run Nath White or Sua Wong or whatever they look to do through there, and he does get out there, he's also a sneaky for a third 2-hour spot for me.
I think he's a red-hot chance of getting an edge, boys, with big minutes, the way it's shaken out. But we'll see. I think he's a better real-life player as a lock, but hey, what am I to know?
That's how they lined up today with Victor on an edge. So take that for what it's worth.
There are so many third 2RF eligible blokes here, boys. This is about where it started to dry up for me in the rankings. I might just add Kai Pearce-Paul looks like he will get a position. He's an okay flyer as well for mine, starting on an edge there, but obviously Dylan Lucas is the one we're after. If Pearce-Paul, if the Knights are decent and their attack is good, let's see if that offload starts emerging. So I think he's a fantastic flyer pretty late in drafts as well. Like Ryan Madison, like it seems like forever ago that he was an absolute stud. Yeah. Does he get an edge start, Todzer?
No, I don't think so.
Or middle rotation at this stage?
I think he's going to be a middle rotation kind of guy for the rest of his career, and probably not one I'd be recommending, to be honest, unless he wants to lock down the starting lock roll, which Hopgood's going to get, or if he was going to edge roll. I just don't want any part of him on the bench.
Nice. We are getting to elevators. That's a plummeting elevator. That one.
He's on his way to the Super League, old Maddo, I'm afraid.
He is. I'm sure he'll be Man of Steel in a year's time. Jack Bird, flyer, boys, not for me. Injury risk combined with hasn't shown it for a while. Not really.
Playing in the CTW anyway.
Agreed. You mentioned Jai Arrow, Simo, as well. Ewan Aitken, CTW playable as well. Absolutely worth a flyer if he gets an edge at the Bunnies. Simo, I think that's a pretty good shout, actually. Probably should be drafted. Boys, anyone else getting this far down? It's a very deep list. Like I've got them ranked here to 87 minus Cam Murray's. It's a big list.
That's a big list. A couple I bring up, mate, is Jacob Laban. Looks the goods for the Warriors. Yeah, okay. He was to get a lockdown at edge, which looks like he's going to. It's going to be him and Capel. I think he has a real friendly Supercoach game. Could get heaps of tackle busts, tackle breaks, and really become like a solid guy. So that'd be one I'd be looking at too. Also, Jackie Williams from the Eels, gone over from the Cronulla Sharks. Yes. Going to be playing a bit of front row minutes by the looks of it, starting front rower. So already available in 2RF. We'll get that duel eventually. So could be a guy to plug and play. We'll see him might get some minutes.
Good one, Todzer. I like those, mate. Simo, anyone for you a bit later on? Any other flyers here, sir?
Look, just for the record, going back one, Aiken is only 2RF, so hasn't got the CT dub, I do not believe.
Oof.
My apologies. I thought that was
just fact check that one. But for me, I think these are not anyone that I'm sort of massively keen on, but I think there's opportunity on the right edge for West Tigers. Like a lot of people are spruiking Seyfarth, but for me, I just don't rate Seyfarth. I think he's as biggest injury suspension risk as we've seen in a player in quite some time. Just
so angry,
just boneheaded stuff. Yep. So I would, if I was in a really deep league, like a 14, 16 teamer, anything bigger than that. I think Ruben Porter is a good guy to have on your bench in really super deep leagues, because it's just me really voting against Seyfarth and a vote for Porter. So
he's been good when he's got minutes.
Super deep. But.
Yeah, decent, like very late bench stash. Brendan Piakura, I think there's a red hot chance. There's a lot of talk he might be the one that loses his spot pretty early into the year. Might even lose it come round 1. Hasn't shown much to match. I know we gave a bit last year. I copped a bit for commenting on him in some public forums. Apparently, he's the best thing since sliced bread. What was I to know? Yeah, I still waiting on it, aren't we, listeners? Still waiting on Brendan to show something at a level, anywhere, anytime. So is Madge, apparently. Boys, look, the redemption arc's always available. He's been so heavily hyped. Is there anything you can hang on to get near a 55 average?
Oh, 55 average? What are you on about? Oh, you'd be lucky to get a 45 average. Unbelievable.
He's the best thing since sliced bread, mate. I got crucified for my opinion on Brendan Piakura.
I'm pretty sure he averaged something like 41 last year.
And did not look great, did he?
He's
just finding his feet.
Yeah, while you look that up, Toddy, like I'll just sort of you see a term in fantasy quite a lot. The old post
42, sorry, 41.
42. Like last year, the hype was, as you know, Redford. Like it was right on Mr. Piakura, and then everyone just jumps off the bandwagon in a massive way. And this is credit to you, mate. You're throwing it out there. Is there room for market correction? So it's a good strategy out there. But do I think it happens? Probably not.
Mate, he's lost the spot to Jack Kasalski. Like, seriously, how bad of a football player do you have to be to lose a job to that guy? It's unbelievable.
Mate, we were talking about it pre. Gavin Sivasaki's apparently ousting their top scorer last year, Dean Mariner, and Jet Shoes. I think Madge is just trying to keep them all honest, mate, making sure they know that, hey, your spot's not safe just because of your name. That's a classic Madge treatment. He'll hairdryer the crap out of him for 2 seasons. May even take him to success, and then it will just bottom out spectacularly, as it does when he just tries to yell at them for the 1,000th time. They're like, boss, come on.
What's wrong with you blokes?
I was like, have you got another gear, Chief? Can you give us something else? No, they're just going to keep yelling at you some more. Ridiculous. Anyway. Yeah, that's about it. I noticed Manning Nicholson and Morgan Smithies weren't mentioned. I'm always disappointed when Morgan doesn't get a run on this potty. Talk about a post-hype sleeper, Simo. He'll plot his way to 65, mate. You watch.
Put you to sleep on a Super Saturday, that's for sure.
Plenty of sleeping going on, yeah.
All right, boys. Yes.
I will ask you, boys. Pick your favourite 2 RF values, or guys that you're big on. If you had to call them flag players, if you want, like who are you pitching your fork to?
Mine's pretty easy with the Jacob Laidman there. I think he could be like a guy that breaks into the top 20 of 2RFs, and that could be unreal come season end.
I'll go with possibly a bit of low-hanging fruit here, Simo, but I'm finding, especially those who had a chance to draft Tom Gilbert earlier than this news, I think that one stands out to me. Like he's going to return outstanding value on previous. I love the Funafuaki fly to keep it with the Dolphins as well. And I'm going to double down from last year. I think the fact you get Kai Pierce-Paul almost at the end of a draft, there's a Supercoach friendly game in there involving offloads. So if you can get him late, just shove him in. It could be fun.
Look at you with your Knights jersey on.
He
completely let you down last year, but good on you, mate. Get back on.
To me, a grudge is nothing more than a place to park your car.
Wonderful. What about you, Simone? What about your week 2RF flyer?
Look, I kind of said Finu before, so I kind of alluded to it. I'm big on Hopgood bouncing back as well, so I probably would.
Big
fun to watch.
Hopgood's a good one. Yep. And
Yeah,
Hosking and Duncan, mate, we mentioned before as well. I just think the value you're going to get on both of them, you can just plug them in, and if one of the two of them work out, you're going to enjoy it.
Yeah. 2RF's one of those positions too. Like, I think it's the old hero strategy is pretty good. Get one guy in the top 10, or if wherever you want to see the cutoff, and then from there, like you can patch it together pretty well later on. Get a couple of threes, or a three that you're really high on, and be happy with that. Like that's pretty much been, the CJ Redford MO for God knows how long. So.
What I've noticed is you can patch together your 2RF pretty quickly. Like, don't stress. I would definitely not pony up hard for a third, for example, because you can find guys throughout the season that average 60. It's one of the rare positions that do that.
Yeah, true. Good shout.
Yeah. It's one of those positions that, you often don't see a lot of big 2RF trades happen in your leagues that often. No. Well, definitely not one for ones. Like they're pretty prevalent, I guess, in multiplayer trades, like 2 for 1s and whatnot, especially if someone's got a weakness. Yeah,
for sure. They're very gettable. They're a good one to throw in, Simo, if you like the trend on someone early. So say, like I mentioned Teague earlier. Teague always gets thrown in trades because someone will be like, it's only Teague Wilton, but he could be an absolute upgrade for you as not the main piece.
Yeah, if you've got a week 3 and you can get him as a throw-in piece that upgrades your number 3 spot, it's pretty good. Sort of just generally talking about strategy chat as well, like you definitely want to have a 2RF on your bench because as we know, like there's a bye every week now. So you're going to want someone there that you're happy to have as a rotational piece as well. So I like to have 4 guys that I just sort of I have a clear top 3 that I like to play, and then the 4th guy could be like an upside guy or a 3 that you think has a pretty good chance of improving to be like a 2 throughout the year. Someone that you're happy to plug in there when buys strike and might hit you some upside and see how you go.
I do like, if you look in that list, the top, say, 30 guys, there's a hell of a lot of dual eligibility here too, boys. And I think 2RF is one of those positions that, I say, like, let's go Lucas and Fermor stand out this year, and I can't wait to get him in the CTW. But what you'll often find is that through injury and attrition, having those guys that you can just pivot up when you need to in buy rounds and what have you becomes crazy valuable because they're not going to hurt you when they move up there either. And you can plug and play like CTWs to replace them on a given week. Yeah. It just gives you waiver flexibility and free agent flexibility.
Yeah.
Todza, for you, mate, this year, your strategy was pretty. You 2RF heavy. That was something you went in direction with.
Yes.
So tell the listeners, mate. So Eli Katoa.
What do we got? Connor Watson, Kalmatualagi, Teague Wilton, and Jacob Laban are my 2RFs. So I podied up for that auction draft.
Very deep. So we can, in our league, we can play 4 of them then, right?
No. Okay. Well, I guess with the flex we could, yes.
It just, it's a heavy strat you've gone this year, Todd.
It's pretty heavy.
It's hard though. It's heavy at the expense of, other positions, for example.
Yeah.
It's not a strat I've seen. It's a ballsy strat when you're taking away, like lessening potentially the spine position. So I do view FRF 2RF as a bit of a blanket in a way that I tend to fade them on draft day and just try and piece it together and hope that the spine keeps. What do you think, mate? Listeners, give the listeners something. Do you think there's merit going as heavy as you've gone here? Do you give yourself a red hot chance?
No, I think I've gone too heavy here. I won't lie, but it wasn't my strategy going in. It's just I sort of saw value in them during the draft.
Yep.
But I definitely think that I missed that, say, example, a fullback or a 5'8" role where I've got Jaden Campbell who can play both, but I don't have a solid guy to play the other position. So I probably should have spent up maybe at halfback too. I got Jamal Fogarty. I've only got Jaden Campbell. My fullbacks like Fletcher Sharp or Lehigh Hopewadi. So I sort of let myself down there, but put in at my 2RF. So in hindsight, I could probably go and try and look for a better fullback or better flex options. But I think I've got a good depth here in this squad, so we'll see how that goes throughout the year.
Interesting. I just want to, given the listeners' perspectives, there's many different ways to do it as always. Lads, to round out this potty, it's been I love diving into Tour because there's so many good names. Rounding out as we go into round 1, is it Teamless Tuesday this week? Going into
be for 4 teams from Vegas will be Tuesday.
Yes. So just a short and sharp potty to come, I believe. We'll run something out. Is that on Tuesday, boys?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Vegas first, Tuesday.
Yeah,
Tuesday coming.
It is dropping. Okay, so short and sharp there. Listeners, for those that may have just drafted, we'd love to hear your outcomes, what you've got up there. Happy to see those posts. We also, we'll put up a post hopefully tonight or early tomorrow around the Listener League to get that up and about. But other than that, boys, we've gone through each position now. Pumped to get on YouTube with some bit of better quality here tonight.
Yes.
Any last thoughts here, Todd Martin?
No, mate, it's been a good podcast. Looking forward to the footy season. Waz in Vegas, baby. Surely we get to start the season off lovely with a win.
Hello. Love it. Thank you, sir. Simo?
As we've talked through the podcast, I'm just that little bit keener for Vegas round 2 now. I've changed my tune.
He's changed.
We got it on the TV.
We got him. All right,
Vegas,
lads.
baby.
So we'll Vegas, baby. That's what we want. So we'll do a bit of a short and sharp one around those 4 teams as the hype grows. But listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Been a pleasure to bring you this preseason edition. We're growing. We're getting bigger and better as we go. So looking forward to keep growing the audience this year. Like, subscribe, send us some comments. Let us know how handsome we are. Thank you to those comments we've had already. As always, listeners, get that BD India. Oh, yeah.